Towers of Midnight by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson is an amazing book, but not without its problems. I found the pacing to continue to be excellent just as it was in the previous book, and the character moments and summations of their arcs just flow so perfectly. But some of the problems I did have involved the flashbacks, or not really flashbacks, but putting characters in the past of what we've already seen in the last book, especially with Perrin, when the impact in the moment has already passed and we know the conclusion of that. I found that to be not the best choice, and I wish it had been planned better through these two books. Even though I know these last three books were meant to be written as one, I wish that had been cut together better. I'm going to jump in here before I get into the characters and say like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. One more review left, Memory of Light. Please give me book recommendations because I don't know what to read after this. Anyways, let's get on with it. We'll start off with Perrin, who has the most page time in this book out of all of our main characters. He is currently traveling through Gheldon, trying to get to Camelin, trying to get back to Rand where he's needed, and he is refusing the burden of leadership. He's telling people to go home. He's telling his friends to burn the wolf banner, and he's not about it. He's trying to reclaim his happiness, or he's trying to be satisfied. Even now that he has Fail back, he's like, I'm still not happy, and he's also fighting his wolf instincts. As he progresses, he goes through and comes into conflict with Galad, who is now the leader of the White Cloaks, and there's just like this, I found it kind of stupid, whereas like, one, he got accused, which is whatever, but then it went to Galad being like, we must fight in honor on the battlefield. That's the only way to solve this. And Perrin's just like, okay. But throughout that whole time, they are now stuck in conflict with the White Cloaks, kind of at a stalemate. Perrin then finds himself embracing the wolf dream and learning it as Slayer comes along and starts killing wolves. And Perrin now has to learn the wolf dream with Hopper and become better at who he is and learn who he actually is and wants to be. I found that great, but I also wish this had started books ago when Perrin was having a very flat character arc and nothing to do since book 4, really. I found this should have been a process of learning throughout the series versus all in one book, because in the end when he's like meeting with Egwene and he's got it all mastered, I really wish that had the same setup as Egwene training with the wise ones. Perrin should have been training with the wolves to really explain his proficiency in Teleharenoid, or the wolf dream. I just wish that had been stretched out longer. It just felt kind of abrupt in that. But anyway, with the meeting with Galad, Morgase is serving tea and she recognizes Galad, and then it's revealed to everybody that she's not Mag Hidden, but she's actually Morgase, and they set up a trial, and Perrin's like, yeah, whatever, I agree to this trial. While at the whole time, they have bubbles of evil popping up, they have swords flying in the air attacking people, they have the wolf dream, and they can't gateway out of there. They can't create a gateway and get out of there because Slayer has planted the dream spike that was given to him by one of the Forsaken, and that is preventing them. It's big purple dome, and he's just killing wolves inside of it. And throughout this, Perrin is preparing for the trial by doing nothing but hunting down Slayer and trying to get the dream spike back. But when the trial finally happens and they go in there, I saw this as a moment for Galad, not Perrin. Yes, the arguments were like very bland and like not really like good or anything, but it was showing him that the world is not black and white. It's not good and evil as like the children see it. It's very ironic that they're called children. Like, I'm sure that's super intentional because they see it in a very childish light, to where everything is good or evil. There is no gray. And Morgase starts this process for Galad. And I think seeing Perrin, who all his actions indicate a good man, but who he knows as good men tell him he's evil. And this conflict in Galad is really hard for him. But the conclusion of the trial is that this is a fight between two mercenary bands. Galad is given the duty of giving Perrin the punishment, but Perrin says, delay it until after Tarmon Gaidon. I have a duty to do. And so these indications after indications of Perrin being a good man, like, really set Galad at a conundrum of, how do I punish this man to where I am told he's evil? He has committed murder, but all the actions I see are that of a person that walks in the light. And along with that, Galad is now smitten with Berlain and Berlain vice versa. After Fael had a talk with her, he's like, yeah, get interested in another man before I murder you. That was a pretty cool scene. And so that's very ironic. The two hottest people, as described in the books, now like each other. It'd be very funny. I thought of this just as a random thought that if they two had like the kid, and the kid was Geidel Kane, Bridget's like significant other, and he's supposed to be like the ugliest motherfucker ever. I thought that'd be hilarious if the two like most attractive people in the series made like the reported ugliest guy that we've heard of. That's just a random tangent thought. I just thought that would be funny. But moving on with Perrin, after the trial and everything concludes, Perrin is in the wolf dream going after Slayer, and it all ends up meeting at. So actually, no. Before this, he at some point he is training in the wolf dream, going through nightmares with Hopper, like trying to learn, like trial by fire learning, and he sees what's happening at Dragonmount. All the wolves are coming in. He doesn't understand what Hopper means when he tells him that the last hunt will happen, or the last hunt will just like nothing will happen and we will die, until he sees Rand on the cliffs. I think this scene would have been so good in the last book if it had cut before he like broke through, if it had gone between perspectives or something. I just found that this scene would have been way more impactful if we didn't already know the conclusion. And so when Perrin sees him and he's having his troubles and it's storming and then the light breaks through and he recognizes Rand, it's just, it could have been placed better, which I had a problem with. But moving on to what I was saying with the fight at the White Tower. At the same time, Egwene is fighting some Black Sisters. I'll get into that when I talk about Egwene. But he is going after Slayer. Slayer's going after him. And he manages to get him in a nightmare. He injures Slayer, and Slayer injures him. Perrin now has full control of the Wolf Dream, and he stops Balefire, which Egwene is like, what the hell? What are you doing here? How did you do that? Along with that, once he like injures Slayer, they go back and forth. Slayer kills Hopper. Hopper is dead. Like, for such a small character and like tiny part, is like hit me way harder than I thought it should be. And R.I.P. Hopper, great, helped him along. I don't know, like I can't say great character because he didn't really have that much characterization, but he did help Perrin along, and I just found it was like, damn. After all of that, and Slayer escapes. It was just, but the Dream Spike is broken, and that leads to what happens in the White Tower, and how all of that was lucky. But moving on with Perrin, even further along, he gets back, he's injured, the gateways can be created now, he leaves, they travel to White Bridge area, and there he is, he's just down, he's like, Hopper's dead, he's so sad. So then he goes to one of the forges and starts working on some horseshoes, working on some other stuff. He's like, I need to make something more. He starts like hammering, and one of the Ashmahan, Nield or whatever, comes over and he's like, I can help you make that hotter. And for the next couple hours, Perrin's just going at it, creating something. He doesn't know what it is for a long time, while Ashmahan creates a circle with some of the wise ones, just channeling into it. And this scene was just so potent after Hopper's death, and what Perrin's feeling, and like his sense of after leaving, like he knows something's wrong. He's like about the ambush that's coming up and like the White Cloaks, and he's just got so many thoughts going through his head, but it's all focused on this one moment to where nothing else matters. And he's just going in and he creates the first power wrought weapon in thousands of years, or in a new age. And it is just this hammer that's got Hopper inscribed on it, like not in words, but like a picture of him. And it's just like it just felt so impactful in that scene. And that scene was so great to read through, as he's just like hours later, everybody's exhausted. He now has forged a hammer that is part warhammer, part blacksmith's hammer on side, to where he can create and he can destroy. And he has found balance in both the Wolf Dream and who he is as Perrin after all of his conflict, which later on we'll see when he visits the one guy that went full wolf later on. I'll get to that. But he then claims leadership. He talks to everybody and he's like, I claim myself. I take responsibility for you people. I accept the burden that you've given me. And then that's when they go back, open a gateway, go and save Galad's men. They're fighting. Galad's sees them. He's like, he thinks that they're there to attack him, but then Two Rivers arrows just start raining down on all the Trollocs. There's somebody channeling over there. I'm assuming it's one of the Ashmahan that's evil now. I'll get to that later too. There's so much stuff that happens in these final books especially. But saves Galad after he snaps his ankle. They go through. There's some really cool small scenes of like them kind of bonding where they're walking through looking for wounded men. And this is how Galad settles the punishment, is where Perrin, with his better hearing, hears a wounded man crying out for help. He runs over, flips him over, gives him water, and Galad sees like this man is good and charges him with just paying the families, nothing more. And after all that, Perrin is like, you can come with us, or you're going to be left behind at the last battle. We need you guys there, every man. And Galad's like, my men don't like the power, yada yada. And Perrin's like, the way you travel with me is if you swear to fight under me until the last battle's over. Galad does. He's like, it's so funny because Perrin knows what happened. He's like, oh, the tiredness you're feeling will go away in a second. You got caught up in the Ta'veren web. And it was just funny that he recognizes after 13 books what he can do. And just by being there and influencing people what he wants and what the pattern wants. That was just a little funny line that popped up. But anyways, they go to Camelin. And he meets with Elaine. Elaine and him hash it out after she's like, what makes you think I should not just hang you guys right here? And they reason back and forth, and he becomes steward of the Two Rivers for Rand as a way of making all the taxes and stuff work out. It's just like details. And then the final scenes with Perrin that really matter are when he goes into the Wolf Dream and meets Boundless, I think it is, who turns out to be the guy from book 2 that went full wolf and was trapped in the stable that Perrin let out. And it turns out and reveals that Perrin was so afraid of becoming this guy, but it was Boundless's release from life. It was what he chose and what he wanted, because he had such a horrible life. He just wanted to be free as a wolf and live carefree as you can be. And Perrin had the realization, the final nail in the coffin of who he is, that what he was afraid of turning into for so long, he shouldn't have been afraid to turn into, because he would never have turned into that. It was what he would become was a natural process that he finally arced to, and then had the realization to where Boundless was just like, this is what I need. As Elias found his balance. It's all about the balance you find, and it turns out that Perrin found his before he even went and met back with Boundless. And it just brought it all together and made Perrin the whole character he is in Time for Tarmangaydan. Great time to tie it all together. You're now ready to go die, Perrin. I don't know if he dies, but a lot of people are going to probably die. Alright, so moving on from Perrin, I'll just touch on some smaller characters before getting to Matt, who also had the biggest of the climaxes in the book. We'll go with Nynaeve. Nynaeve goes back to the tower after Egwene requests her, and she takes her test, and she also has a hard time calling Egwene mother, and she has to get this really thought out and factual speech of how did you feel when you were wisdom and people didn't go to you for their problems. She's like, oh shit, yeah. You're right. And so she now respects Egwene as the Amyrlin when people are around, and she still respects her in private, but they're friends. And so she goes and does her testing, and it is the harshest testing you see. It is so horrible. She has to make choices, and what she does is she says, screw the cool. Rule of cool doesn't apply to me. I'm here to save people. It's more important to me to save people. And so in one Two Rivers scene, she starts weaving before she gets to the star, which is supposed to be impossible, but she does. It's just and she saves people while doing the weave and leaves. And so throughout, she's saving people, she's getting angry, she's showing emotion, she's showing who she is. She's not just this cool Aes Sedai that sacrifices people for the good of the White Tower. And the final thing that Egwene planted in herself was where Lan is in the Blight getting attacked by Darkhounds, and she's just chucking balefire in this, just destabilizing the whole angry old Terrain girl, and it's all shaking, and she saves Lan, and she has to let Lan go, and then she makes the weave, and she gets back, and all the sitters that did the test with her were like, man, you kinda didn't keep your face flat, and you ran, and you channeled before, and she's like, does that fucking matter? I chose saving people over staying cool and collected and the image of the White Tower. It is more important to me to make sure people live and things progress as they can than it is to further the White Tower's goals. I want people to live, and I don't want to sacrifice people simply because it furthers our goal. And then there's also the thing when she's talking to Gwen, where she's like, I would choose the land over the White Tower. And this is in contrast to way back when she did her accepted test in like book 2 of where she chose the White Tower over land. And that love she has is like progressed. And that was just great moments. And those scenes were so good. It just showed that Nynaeve was not going to be beaten down into just another Aes Sedai. She was who she is, and she's a more mature version of who she is. It's like refining. It's like taking like that rough gemstone and like it's been cleaned up to be the perfect of what it is, but it hasn't been cut into a new shape. It is the shape it was, just cleaner. And that's what Nynaeve is. It's like all the rough edges got ground down to her core being, and that's who she is as an Aes Sedai. Not just another calm, cool, collected robot to further the White Tower's needs. And so through all of that, that was just great. And then some other things she does is she learns to heal madness, but she can't heal Rand's madness because there's this weird confliction of light and dark in his mind, and it's just so tight and intricate that's going on. But overall, she helps Egwene in her fight, which I'll get to later on. But that's pretty much the big thing that happened with Nynaeve, is she became fully Aes Sedai, and she took the oaths. And also, she's like, no, I'm not going to give up Balefire because that's stupid. I'm going to be with Rand at the boar. What if I need to use Balefire? And like, it just seemed like such good logic of to where the sitters should have seen it, but like their power is being threatened by her succeeding in the test, but also being voted through. And so they feel like they need to take something away from her. And she's like, no, fuck you guys. Okay, so moving on from Nynaeve, I guess I'll touch on Lan too. Lan just kind of travels along. He's like, oh no, you can't travel with me. Oh, yada, yada, yada. And this is kind of disappointing because the final scene was so good when he was giving his speech. It's like the last page of the book of where he is like, you don't follow a person, you follow a king, yada, yada, yada. And he's just like, the golden crane flies, and it's all hype. Except he didn't do anything to earn it. There was nothing to, like, the only decision that, like, made him be like, okay, I'll go king is, like, when some guy at the gate recognizes him. He's like, hey, lad, yeah, that's my boy. I ride with you. He's like, fine. I guess you all ride with me. I just felt that he needed something to, like, really make him realize what he needs to be. And traveling along, collecting a caravan just wasn't it. It was like... I'm not sure if he needed more page time, but I was just like, the final moment could have been better, which is the thing that I most regretted. I guess we'll talk about Egwene now. Egwene Amerlin now. The first thing she does, meet with Rand. Rand is now a different person. Egwene hasn't seen him in books. It's been so long since he's seen Rand. And she never went with Crazy Rand, so this just seems like King Rand. And she's heard rumors and everything. And so that meeting's like, yeah, I'm going to break the seals. And she's like, no, I'm keeper of the seals. You're not going to do that. Please don't. We're not releasing the Dark One just so it may make our fight harder. And then he leaves because she's like, I don't think we could have kept him here. With all the Aes Sedai and warders, I don't think it would have happened. There's a little scene with Sion where Rand's like, thank you. That was nice. Just a little tidbit. I love character interactions by people you don't expect, or like characters that haven't had any correlation, but they come together and they have like an interaction. That's just great. And so Egwene's whole thing throughout this is trying to solve the murder of the sisters that's happened in the tower. They're like, it's Black Aha. How else are they getting into these rooms? But they're dying by daggers. And this is also where Gawyn comes in. She sets a trap. She makes herself bait. She's like, Gawyn, you can't be my warder because you don't understand that you don't trust me. You just try to save me, but you don't implicitly trust me. And so sets a trap. Gawyn sees like this dark figure going for her door, scares him off, and then goes to her door, opens it, and gets locked up like a turkey on Thanksgiving. And she's like, God damn it, dude. Not again. Oh my god. And so he leaves going to Camelin, and she starts spreading rumors about a big old meeting she's going to have with important people from the Athan Mir, the Wise Ones, sitters in the tower, all of that, trying to get the Black Aha to come back into Telleranohoid, or the dream world. And after she already like took out like one or two that were like spying on her, and so she's setting this trap. And Gawyn gets sent back to Camelin. There, like he talks to Elaine, and he has like a little boat ride, and that later on comes to him realizing what he needs to be. And so Gawyn's setting this stuff up, and it comes to the meeting. The meeting that happens is her and the wise ones and a couple other Aes Sedai, and they're waiting, and Missana finally attacks. Missana attacks the tower, and there's just back and forth battle. Like the wise ones like having fun taking over. This is their realm. Even Bear, who can't channel, is just cooking these fools. And it's back and forth, throwing fire, like burning each other, like hanging each other, stuff like that. It's just so great. Like the action in those scenes was excellent. And then there's one thing where one of the wise ones is like blending the wall, and she's like, "Your pattern's recognized. Well, what the hell are you doing, Nynaeve and Egwen?" And throughout it, they're fighting, and there is one thing where Katarine is disguised as Missana, and she is killed by Egwen. Egwene finds where Missana is. She's then captured by an Adam, and she is freaking out. She is like, "Oh my god, not again." This has been like a terror. Like they drop lines here and there throughout all the books of like how scared she is of like the Adam, like the trauma she has. And then she ends up just like finally realizing like another moment of, even though she completed her character arc when she took over the White Tower like last book and all that, but she's like, no, she conquers this fear, and she breaks Masana's mind in a battle of will. She's like, kneel before me. And she just turns her into a blubbering idiot. And a lot of the Dark Friends are just like killed. The Black Aha is really hurt, and the tower is theirs. But this whole time could have gone so wrong if it wasn't for Perrin drawing the Dream Spike there, because the Black Aha were going to try to take them to another place, like lead them away to where they had the advantage, and then they could have turned out horribly. But Perrin pulls up, he's like, saves her from Balefire. It's like, sup, yeah, it's just a weave, I can counteract it. And this leaves me to believe, like, in one of the fights, Egwene was like, I imagine you on fire, and the Black Aha was on fire. But like, couldn't you just like walk around and be like, all of the Black Aha are dead in the Telleranoid? Would that not work? Am I looking too far into this? Probably. But Gawyn, at the same time as she's doing all this fight, realizes what the hell is happening, because the dagger that he took from the first guy that he fought when he saw her at their door turns out to be a Seachan dagger from the Dark Troops that dropped into the tower last book or the book before. And then explained to by one of the Soldam. And so he's running back. He's trying to make it back. And it leads to one of the coolest action scenes, to where he is in Egwene's room fighting two of them off. Like his boy, his other youngling, gets decapitated. He's fighting these shadows, these dark shadows that have boosts from the rings that'll kill him. And it's just so cool. And then a third one comes in, and he's just bleeding. He's doing his best. And then he remembers what somebody said. He knocks the light over, so it's all darkness. And then that's when he does like some of these coolest plays of where he takes one out, and then he holds his sword at his neck, and then gets stabbed in the side, and knows where he is and decapitates him, and ends up just like laying there on Egwene's bed, bleeding out, to where she wakes up and she sees him, and the three dead bodies of the Seachan assassins are there, and she bonds him as warder, and he finally like understands, and he accepts who he's supposed to be after way back in the Camelin Garden, forgiving Althor for being who he thought he was or wanted to be, and was like, you are nothing to me, and like, I don't have hate, I don't have love for you, I don't care about you anymore, Althor. And like after the talk on the boat with Elaine, and seeing like all this logic, sometimes it takes a while to get beaten, even if it all makes sense, it doesn't make sense to you. And so they're now bonded, and that's great. It was just, could have been, I guess, set up a little bit more in previous books, but overall, it's fine. I think the page time was devoted well enough. Moving on from Egwene, let's get to Mat. Mat is pretty flat throughout the whole book until the last couple hundred pages, where he gets all of the action. So he's in Camelin now with the band, and it's super funny. He can't get an audience with Elaine. She's like, she's just being annoying, and writes this funny letter I was so glad they put the letter in the book. It was just funny, and she's like, Elaine's registering, new curses, cool. And then, like, he finally goes and sees her, secures a deal to make the dragons, and now the band is, like, employed by the Andoran Crown, and so the dragons are now in production. But the part of the deal is he gives up the medallion to Elaine for 48 hours to study, and I'll combine Elaine with Matt here. Elaine does some of the stupidest stuff in this book just because of one Min vision. Like, do you not understand? Bridget explains it to her how you can get hurt and your kids are stillborn. And so she makes a couple copies of the medallion. And I'm going to impersonate one of the chosen or not chosen, the Forsaken. I'm not a dark friend. One of the Forsaken, and goes to visit the Black Sisters in the cells that she captured when she took the crown. And she is like all flowing and evil, and then she's interrogating one, and more come, and then the guard that was the head of her guardsmen, who was a dark friend, comes, and she's like fighting them, and she's like the action there was really well thought out, and it shows like how much she's matured as a weaver and like as an Aes Sedai, but like the thought process was so stupid. And so the guardsman gets away with one of the copies of the medallion, and luckily she recovers the original. I was the whole time, I'm like, please don't lose Matt's medallion. Please don't lose it. Oh my god. And then she's stabbed, and she's like bleeding out there. And, and then Bridget and Matt come running, and she gets healed. And like she's disabled like 3 Black Sisters. But the guy got away, and like it's such an idiotic moment. It's so stupid. Like, you let nobody know you're doing this, and Bridget's like, you gotta trust me. I'm your warder. This is literally my job to keep you alive. And so I was just stupid. But moving on with Matt. Matt, this whole time, him, Tom, and Noel are preparing to go to the Tower of Ghenjei, and they're studying. They're trying to figure out things, and while Elaine was doing her stupid shit, Matt was questioning Bridget about her time, and her story is dark. She went to go heal Geidel Kane, or whatever his name was in this era, and like she just like for months fought in there, and then eventually died. And it was just like, ugh, this tower is no joke. And so moving on from that, the next thing that Matt does is try to catch the golem. Throughout the whole book, he has been getting like recognized and attacked, or tried to be assassinated, because there's posters of him everywhere. They're like, kill this man, get money. And like he saves like this one beggar, and then like his scarf gets ripped. He's like, oh man, I thank you, I needed this. And the beggar tries to kill him. He's like, god damn it, has to kill the beggar. And then, so he sets a trap for the golem. He is gambling and everything, and he makes himself super recognizable. And then he's walking down the street, and he's got a band hidden, and the golem comes. And this action scene is great. The way they plan it out, and him with his Ashandare, like fighting him with the medallion, and like he's getting all the hits in, but this thing's invincible. And finally, like retreating back to the house. Shout out Paul Maines, he's cool. And pushing him through the skimming doorway, like. That is such a smart solution. I was so glad it wasn't like blast him with the dragon cannons until he's bits and pieces. I'm so glad it was something where like the infinite void meets the infinite living thing. And like that was a great solution, and it was very much a Matt moment of overcoming the problem. Yeah, I gotta say that the golem could have been like a more prominent villain, especially for Matt, who has the one thing that can hurt it. But it was fine. I just think that the moments of the fights with the golem were great, but the overall purpose of the golem was kind of whack. I wish it had more than just kill Matt, track and kill Matt. And finally, Matt goes to the Tower of Ghenjei with Tom, Noel, or Jane Fairstrider, as we find out. I figured this out when he was telling stories to Oliver way back when in the books. I'm like, this guy, when he was talking about going to Shara or whatever across the Aiel West, I was like, this guy's Jane Fairstrider. I called it. And so they go in, they carve on the doorway, McTrial go in, and they're just trusting Matt's luck. Just only trusting Matt's luck. And they finally make it to the negotiation chamber. And Matt, in his rage, he just formulates his words wrong and says, you bloody foxes can't touch us and give us a direct path. And with Moraine in Tom's arms, they're running. and they run into the eelfin. I think the eelfin are the snakes. The eelfin are the foxes. One or the other. So you said foxes. You didn't say anybody here. And so they're running, but they can't double back, which is where Matt's luck wants them to go. And so this is where Noel and slash Jane Fairstrider sacrifices himself. And the scene was so sad. He's not a huge character, but like you could feel like the hidden depth, especially when it's like tell the Malkier that Jane Fairstrider died true, and like you don't know what he did with the Malkier, but this whole time, like you see this hidden past, and the way he talks about Jane or himself, and like the mistakes he made, and like you can tell he's got like a traumatized past, and he's trying to make up for what he's done without having to see what he's done. And that moment was so impactful, and he buys enough time, and they're double back enough. They make it to a room, but the doorway's closed, and there's blood on the swords of the Aelfin that are coming for them. And Matt realizes he's going through his gifts. He's going through the thoughts that they give him. He's going through the answers. He's going through the items. He's like, why the hell do I have this spear? Oh, path out. Because he initially wished to get out of there, but they just brought him out. They didn't like show him how to get out. And so he carves into the wall and opens it. And it was just so sad because if he discovered it 5 minutes earlier, Jane would be alive. And so they're out. It's him, Tom, and Moiraine. And Moiraine comes too. And Moiraine has been getting sucked dry. They were like leeching her power and her emotion, of which they said that they'd killed Lanfear doing the same thing. But it turns out that we don't really know what exactly. It's kind of ambiguous. And so she's weak in the power. But her and Tom are a thing. The my dearest Tom thing. And it's so funny that like this was completely not set up, but it works because you've been so caught up in all these perspectives that you don't think that it's like, oh, it's from Rand's viewpoints, from Matt's viewpoints, from Perrin's viewpoint. And they're not looking at Tom and Moiraine in that like they're like Old Gleeman, Aes Sedai. Even especially back then when they were traveling, like they were caught up in the big picture and were not focusing on the details. So when they see this, they're like, it makes sense, but like it's so obvious that they wouldn't have saw it. And so she bonds him as a warder, and so Tom, the warder, court bard, gleeman, master of knives, is now Moiraine's warder, and Moiraine is back. I don't know what she has left to play in this, but apparently a big part, because Matt sacrificed one eye for her, half the light in the world, gone. Matt is blind in one eye, and it's funny because he goes out to, like, give him space, and he's like, how am I going to fight like this? And he chucks a knife behind him, and he skewers a rabbit, and he's like, oh, I'm kind of the luckiest man in the world. I just swing and I'll hit stuff. This is a very Matt moment of getting over this devastating injury that should just spiral him into depression. And that is it for Matt. Matt was great in this book. I've got to say, Matt has been amazing. Let's see, who else do we have? Oh, of course, Rand. Rand is much smaller portion in this book, but I think deservedly so after what he's gotten in the last book. He is now in his Zen mode. He is Luz Theron Randall Thor Telamon, and he is just the man he needs to be. And first thing he does, he walks down the mountain of Dragonmount and just makes these orchards bloom for the farmers. And he goes and visits Egwene, tells her about his plan to break the seals, clear away the debris. And as he's going along, he doesn't really do much. He goes back to save Rodel Itulariad, my boy. I love this guy. Those scenes were probably my favorite in the book, of when Rodel was defending the city in Kandor, Melanin or something like that. And those were so great, where he's just fighting, and the one Kandori guy that lets him in the gates is like, I will submit myself to the queen for execution. Just this characterization of the Borderlanders, especially after the initial scene in the prologue, where they had those Kandori Tower scouting, and like the commander and his son, and he's like, you're a man now, gave him the sword. Oh, just those little world building and characterization moments. So what makes so much of the series great? It's the tiny things, not like the big overarching, like J.R.R. Tolkien write a whole book about like the world. Like, it's the little things that add depth. And so Rodel's defending the city, and just his strategy and his use of the Ashmahan, and like the way he's just going at these Trollocs, and finally just beat down. Rand comes and shows He is the dragon reborn. He is not a broken man. He is who he needs to be to face the Dark One, and just devastates the armies of the Shadow. And that really tires him out, but like he's like, I needed to do this. Like, I'm so sorry I left you here. Of which, like, you gonna help out Lan? He needs to. So Rodell is saved. My boy Rodell, shout out. Definitely top tier character. And he goes back and he sees Tam in Tyr, and he breaks down. Oh, that may have even been better than the scene against the Shadow, of where he breaks down and hugs his father, and he's like, "I'm so sorry. Like, I failed you like so much." And Tam's just like, "You're my boy. Like, I'll always love you." And it was just the unconditional love of like somebody who's raised him. Like, there was still like that little awkwardness of you're like the king, but like Rand was a little. He was the child of Two Rivers at that point. He wasn't part Lews Therin. He was Rand al'Thor, the kid from the Two Rivers, and it's very nice. To close it off, we have Aviendha. Aviendha had also some of the most impactful scenes of the book when she goes to Ruidan and goes through the glass, and she's like, "Damn, yeah, you know what? We broke our oaths. We really betrayed the Aes Sedai." She's like, "But this isn't a challenge anymore because of what Rand revealed. Like, this is not the test of the wise ones of the clan chiefs." She goes back again the opposite way and sees the future, and her kids and Rand's kids have led to the destruction of the Aiel. And the Aiel have lost Jito. They no longer have their honor. They are getting destroyed by the Seachan, captured. They're begging, sniveling, no longer a proud people. And this is just breaking Aviendha inside. Like, she wanted a challenge. She wanted trial. She got it. And so she gets through it, and then she goes tells the wise ones, and they're like, "We can't treat this as a definitive future because we're going to try to change it anyway. So why not treat it like we can change it?" And like, just that, I know there's no sequels to the series, so I don't know if we'll ever find out, but just that, like, that extra burden on her of being like, "Oh my God, my people are going to get destroyed." Because it was all about like, "Oh, Rand will break your people." Maybe it wasn't by leaving the Aiel waste. Maybe it's because what he leaves behind will be the breaking of their people. And ooh, those scenes when she's just going through the glass were so like horrifying to see, because you know the Aiel is badass warriors. Like, they will fight, and like there's a mystery of like, oh, the Seachan didn't attack. We attacked the Seachan because we were left without like purpose, and they had like captured Damane. And there's a mystery there that I'm not sure will get solved, but just like it leaves more depth into the story and leaves clues for the future. And finally, we have Mazrim Taim and the Black Tower. The Black Tower is not just split, it is corrupted. There's some good guys there, but there is also so much darkness. Mazrim Taim is converting the Ashmahan, if there are not already a Dark Friend, into evil using the 13 Aes Sedai and 13 Midral. And it is just such an annoying thing because you're like, Rand, why did you leave this? This was supposed to be your weapon, but you just trusted this guy that you already didn't like, and you just left it, and you didn't like control it at all. Like, imagine if like Robot Rand, like Alien Rand, had just like gone in there and just slaughtered Mazrim Taim and all the Dark Friend Ashmahan. Like, that would have been like a good thing. That would have been a little terrifying. But like, now he has this problem, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. Like, I honestly don't know what he's gonna do about that. I don't know if there's enough pages to deal with that. I guess they just fight on the side of the Shadow, but like that completely backfired. To end the book, we find Tallmanes and Oliver playing the Snakes and Foxes game, and Oliver is like, I won the unwinnable game. And Tallmane's like, what? Shut up. And no, he checks it out, and he did win. And then he's like, holy crap. And Oliver happens to get upon Rand's letter. And the little like instances of Oliver being like, oh, like cussing, or being like, I learned proprietaries just so I can snuggle up to the innkeeper woman. And so he ends up opening the letter, and it is a letter from Perrin, of which it says, Trollocs are going to invade Camelin, a huge force. And Tallmanes reads it, goes outside, and Camelin is burning. And that's just like, oh, uh-oh. And I don't understand the total workings of the letter. I just found that, like, I know she trusted Matt to open it up because he's curious, but it's just like, I don't know. It felt a little weird. Like I was expecting the letter to play into Matt a bit more than it just his curiosity. And like it wasn't disappointing because of what's happening now, but like just the coincidental and like, oh, too late now is just kind of dumb. I don't know. And like the 30 days, like wait 30 days, like before it's either open it after 10 or wait 30 days and leave, like, but like 30 days later, like they're still gonna get attacked. That was just kind of funky. Like I didn't really understand the total logic of that, but overall not really a huge deal. Camlin's on fire, and Elaine and literally every other person, like 90% of the soldiers minus the sea chain, are up in the field of Maylor to meet with Rand. But we'll see how that goes. Overall, I have to say the Towers of Midnight was another excellent entry despite the problems I had that mostly involved where the scenes took place in the past two novels, and also some little characterization moments that didn't make a whole lot of sense. I have to say I am so excited to finish this series, but at the same time I'm dreading it. Like and subscribe if you enjoy, and leave me book recommendations, because what the hell am I going to read after this? Preferably like a trilogy or something. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Watch some other videos. See you later.